No One Likes Us Clothing is the clothing range designed by Millwall fans for Millwall fans. Caps, t-shirts, polos, they've got it all. Visit noonelikesus.co.uk for the full range. Or if you're in Bermondsey on a match day, why not have a pint in the Blue Anchor pub and pick up a Nolu polo shirt, Nolu clothing at www.noonelikesus.co.uk.
You're listening to Achtung Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Bermondsey. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Achtung Millwall, the number one Millwall podcast. My name is Nick Hart, and joining me in the aftermath of last night's very disappointing result up there at Turf Moor, Burnley, is Mr. Ryan Loftus. How are you, Ryan?
Not too bad, Nick. I've got my work cut out for me today, getting you out of your funk that the Millwall result has put you into, but I'm sure I'll give it my best go.
I feel genuinely flat after that performance last night. It was a strange game in some ways because the starting 11, which we'll read out for the listeners, Bart in goal, back line of Hutchinson, Cooper and Creswell, McNamara and Wallace on the left, Wallace, McNamara on the right, midfield, Shackleton, Fleming-ish, shuttling forwards from the front line, I suppose, Saville, and up front, Bradshaw, Vogelsson. I mean, that starting 11, which had 3 changes, I think, Ryan, didn't look too bad pre-game. I think a lot, myself included, were quite approving of it before kick-off.
Yeah, I think it's what people wanted. I think saw a lot of the predicted lineups and people putting out what they'd put out, and it was pretty in line with what people thought. I thought, dropping Malone was what people wanted. Dropping Afobe is what people wanted.
Yeah,
maybe an argument if you had Bury in there or not, rather than Bradshaw. But obviously Bradshaw, come back from injury, hasn't had too much of a look in this season, so can understand why he starts. But yeah, it looked like what people wanted. And then you get the performance that you get, and that's not necessarily what you want from the changes.
It wasn't a bad first half. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a brilliant first half, listeners, but we were in the game. I'm just looking at my notes. I mean, a couple of Burnley chances, which you would expect from an ex-Premier League side, Ryan, with a glamour manager, Vincent Kompany, and obviously an ability to attract players that have quality and financial resources, obviously, with their parachute payments. But, we had a good chance. Fleming, the free kick on 14 minutes was well saved by their goalkeeper. Another day that might have gone in. But I thought we didn't do a bad job in the first half of containing them.
No, not a bad half. It's I tweeted out towards the end of the game, really. It was pretty much a carbon copy of the Norwich game. We did what we do and kind of sit off and contain them, like you say. We had one chance, which I think, again, we had in the Norwich game in the first half. We had one, good chance. Okay, this time it was Fleming's free kick, but beyond that, nothing else really. It's the frustrating thing that I'm worried. I wrote last week for London Football Scene about Millwall's away form and the problems that we've got on the road, and I'm worried that we're getting to the stage where it is the kind of the end of the Neil Harris era, where it was very much setting up for a draw and hoping if we can nick a goal, that's fine, but ultimately we want the draw, and it's that fear of losing. I think when Rowett first came in and we were doing really well on the road and getting up a little 1-0 wins and whatever, there was definitely, the side was set up to attack still, although we were sitting off and containing teams.
Yeah,
it felt like we were controlling the game a lot more doing that. Although the team had the ball, we were in control of where they had it, where they got with it. At the moment, it seems like we're not really controlling it. We're kind of just not hanging on necessarily, but we're really kind of just trying to shut up shop. And then where it used to be, where we had a clear, when we get the ball, how we're attacking and we're getting chances, I feel like that isn't there anymore. I feel like we don't look like we're threatening on the break often enough for me for away performances. And I know some people put it out, which is I think fair enough, that the teams that we've had so far away have been hard games. Obviously, 2 of the relegated sides.
It's a hard league, though, Ryan. I mean, they're hard games, yes, but it's a hard division.
We've played the top 3, who are the current top 3 away, and then Swansea, which Swansea may be the outlier for it. The fact that they're not doing well and that we just about scraped a draw. But it's performance as well, isn't it? It's performance. It's you feel like you're getting to that stage of acceptance that we're not good enough, which I felt like under Rowett for the most part of his tenure, he really wanted to do away with that. It was all positive messaging of we're going for top 6, we can compete. We have to compete in our own way, but we can compete. The performances now are starting to look a little bit like we feel like we're not good enough, and we're hoping to nick a draw or potentially nick a win, but that looks very unlikely at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say hanging on. I'd written clinging on at the start of the second half. A couple of early chances for Burnley. I think a terrific Bart save. Was it Teller? I think that looked by far their most dangerous player. But I mean, they looked a decent side in fairness to Burnley. But the opening of the second half, I mean, yes, we were still in it. I mean, we actually had a chance. Vogelsong, terrific ball, Vogie to Fleming, and then I think Murray Wallace kind of hit the post with a slap shot inside the 6-yard box. So we weren't exactly out of it. But it's these self-inflicted errors and poor defending that does for us, Ryan. It's done for us really. Apart from the Stoke game, pretty much every game this season has featured a self-inflicted error at some point. I mean, I've got that really down for both goals. Both were soft. The first one was that crossing from the right, which seemed to creep across the goal, no one really clearing it. And then obviously the second one was unlucky on Bart because he performs miracles, as we know, but he did spill it and allowing, I think, Rodriguez to slam it home. And that was game, set and match. As soon as we went 1 down, it felt like game over to me.
Yeah, I think was it Carl or Max on the stream I was watching it on? One of them said before, or just at the start of the second half, which was a bit like, this is kind of where Millwall are. They said they cannot let Burnley get a goal.
Get in front, yeah.
If they get in front, then we lose, basically. And that's not a great position to be in. 45 minutes to go in the game, saying that if this team scores 1 goal, there is no way we're going to get anything from this game because we just can't get the ball off them or can't threaten them enough. And that's the commentary team who watch them every week saying that. That's not a great position to be in. I think, the first goal, obviously, you probably put it down to McNamara just did not follow his man, didn't seem to have any awareness. He's not been great, actually, McNamara. I can't remember who it was, but I think someone else scored pretty much identical goal against us where he kind of just didn't pick up the man. And I know that happens quite a lot. It's quite easy to switch off there, especially where you maybe start thinking someone else is going to clear it. But again, it's in that zone where it's quite hard and you can't really switch off. And it's a classic case of the striker wanting it more. And then the second one, is really, really poor, really, from Bart, who you'd expect better from. But
yeah, you would. But
I know there was potentially one of the defenders. Rodriguez was perfectly placed, which you have to be as a striker in that situation. Really, perfectly placed to get the tap in. If he drops it either way to the left or right, then Cooper and Hutchinson are there to clear it. But he doesn't. And it's just not ideal when you're not defensively solid, which we are used to being or used to expecting from Millwall. When it looks like teams aren't having to work too hard, for all the dominant that Burnley had, they weren't constantly knocking on the door. There wasn't loads of last gasp save and last gasp chances. Like a lot of their chances were, kind of on the angle or outside the box where they're not very, they're not very good efforts or not very high XG or high probability of scoring. I think Sean Dyche, that's basically his old mantra used to be Burnley would always concede loads and loads of shots, but they were from such bad angles and so far out that they never
matter
really
so much.
Yeah. So he was happy to give up 20 shots a game if all of them were outside the box and from a less than 45-degree angle, then it doesn't really matter. But it didn't feel like Burnley were doing that. It didn't feel like they were getting Bart was performing miracles, like you say. I don't feel like he had loads to do. Weirdly, I think he made a couple of good saves. I don't think he made anything that was outstanding. And then it's just kind of the inevitable. You feel it's very simple.
We livened up as ever. We livened up a little bit with substitutions. Came in with 2 goals behind. Rowett makes some late substitutions. A chance for a Phobie, which he can't buy a goal at the moment, can he?
How did he miss that?
I don't know. I mean, that's when the gods are smiling on you. They're smiling. When they're not, you can't buy a goal. A few late flurries, Ryan, but overall it was a very disappointing performance because I still get a sense there's a decent side in there. It's just not being set up, and they're not playing for the manager in a way that produces danger moments. But I still do think, 'cause I want to pick out some positives before we go on to the reaction after the game. But I mean, Fleming is a major, major talented boy. I like him.
He
I like
looks
the look
really
of
good.
Vogelsama. And Bury, obviously, when he came into the game late. These are positives. We've got to set up. We've got to play to our positives, because we do have some talented boys there, but we're not giving them the chance at the moment to show it.
Yeah, I think Fleming looks great. Like Fleming looks. I know he was kind of taking on kind of wild shots last night. I think he was kind of. There was that one where he just got the pass slightly wrong to
Yeah.
Bradshaw after he was played through, and he just missed it. But free kick was good. Couple of efforts that he's not afraid to take on. Millwall don't really score that many goals from outside the box. I don't feel we have those sort of players, but he looks like he's going to be a proper threat. He obviously just needs support and other people around him to do it as well. Vogelsama as well. Yeah, looks good. I think surprised by how versatile he was. I thought he would pretty much be the out and out striker. But a lot of the time he was dropping quite deep and getting behind Fleming and putting Fleming through. I thought it'd be the other way around. So I think it's interesting to see how those two will link up. Yeah. Other than that, you're really scratching at it. You're just really scratching around for positives. I think. I agree. We just don't look like we're set up to score. I mean, we've never been set up to score goals really under our like that much. I think creativity has always been the big problem, and I think after these last few games, that's where we're really starting to see like the Jed Wallace gap. I mean, pace is something we don't really have. I know when Bury comes on, it's great, but again, thinking back to like the good away wins of yesteryear, although it was only 2 or 3 seasons ago maybe, but pace on the break and hitting people. I know we'd often have Romeo and Wallace like absolutely going at teams down the right, and Malone has lost a yard of pace, but he used to kind of fly up that left wing as well. We just don't look like it seems like I remember Rowett once saying, I can't remember, it was a season or so ago, how hard we have to work to score goals. Whether it's a set piece or a deflection or whatever. He used to say, this team, we have to work really hard to score goals. And obviously all teams do, but more so than others. We're getting back to the stage where the amount of effort we're having to put in to get a goal it's
disproportionate. I do agree.
Exactly. It's getting too far away. I mean, it's now, 3 without a goal? Well, 4 without a goal scored by a Millwall player.
I mean, the season, although it's only 7 games in, listeners, and it's early, they do say the 10-game mark is a point where you start to make judgments on a team's potential for the season. At the moment, we're in 19th position, and early in the season to be looking at a league table, but there it is. You'd look at it if you were top or bottom. So we've got to look at it in 19th. 7 games in, but it does feel like the season is the wheels are starting to, if not come off, they're getting a bit loose on the axles. Even some of the post-match comments from Gary Rowett, he seems to be, I've got it here, he says disappointed with the nature of the goals that we're conceding. And this one caught my eye today. It's on, I think, London News Online. He says to Richard Corley, I'm guessing, I don't think we've got that many players at the moment who are saying, you've got to pick me every week. We need people to step up because we're better than that. I think when you start saying that, it's the Marino thing, isn't it? You start to criticise your players in public rather than behind closed doors. It never feels good.
Yeah, and that's an interesting comment as well, because it's his squad. Like, there's no doubt that it's his squad now.
Yeah.
It's hit the players he's brought in and the players he's opted to back for the last few seasons. Malone has come through a lot of criticism, but he's always continued to back him and talk about him as one of the best left wing backs in the division on his day. It's interesting to hear that, and that also does make it feel like he just feels like the players aren't necessarily performing to what he wants to do. I do feel he's taking a massive gamble this year with not having any wingers. Not the squad is so one-dimensional.
Down the middle,
It is entirely it's so one-dimensional that it's I think for the Championship especially, it's quite for me it's quite concerning that when one thing doesn't work, and okay, maybe previously we've had Jed Wallace to then go, here's the ball, can you do something with it because this isn't working. We're now in the situation where if that one thing doesn't work, like like I keep saying every time I come on at the moment, the wing backs are massively important, and they're doing nothing at all this year. They're not even
No,
getting
they're
into
poor both. I mean, we have, and that includes Danny Mack. I know he's Millwall through and through,
yeah,
etc.,
but
etc. But you judge on what you see, Ryan, and both of them, Malone and Danny, have not been
yeah,
playing to their potential.
yeah, and it was hard for Murray Wallace to get too far forward yesterday. But and if you're just going to play through the middle constantly, when you're playing against teams, which a lot of the teams in this division are, who are better at retaining the ball than us, you're going to really struggle because they will just play triangles around you, and that's what you want. There's always the thing of the touchline is an extra defender, so that's why teams play wide. If you play wide, then you can shut teams out. If you're channeling everything through the middle, our midfield doesn't look great at the moment. It looks quite lightweight. Teams are passing their way through it pretty easily. We keep setting up with two.
Yeah.
We keep setting up with two in midfield. So when we're playing teams who are playing a 4-3-3 or have three in midfield, they will just play around us. They got more numbers, and then it's just about getting into dangerous spaces. I just feel like we're very on the back foot at the moment, and I would like to say all those who are calling for Gary Rowett's head, sooner rather than later. I will direct you back to a couple of seasons ago when we went 15 games without a win, and he clung on. So,
well, he's got a track record of that. I was just going to make that very point. I mean, I always refer back to Peterborough, but there's been other. I think during the lockout season, there were some stretches of poor results, continuous losses, blah blah blah. He does have a survivor's instinct. Somehow he seems to find something from somewhere. And Saturday would be a great time to find a result, because we're all basically interested in the outcome for Millwall FC, not necessarily for Gary Rowett. But he's got a big game Saturday, Ryan, and it's got potential to go badly wrong on him if he produces, or his team, because the players are involved in this, produce another flat performance like we've seen recently. It could go badly wrong on him.
Yeah, definitely. I think that run was 1 win in 15. Sorry, not no wins. But I think what hasn't happened really too much under Rowett, from what I can see, is really long losing streaks. So I think the most is 3, and we're kind of up to that now. And I looking at that now, I remember that was when we beat West Brom 2-0 to break that streak, and their manager got sacked, and it was kind of a turning point. I think obviously it's always been draws, hasn't it? So the fact that we're not even getting close to getting draws at the moment is a problem. And I wonder how many losses in a row. I think Harry keeps saying in our group, or we were saying definitely before the season, like a manager can have any backing until you lose 5 games in a row, and then it all changes, which I think is definitely the truth. If you're on that slide, Millwall aren't a board to take quick, drastic action, I don't think. But it does come a point where they're going to need to start winning games, and they're going to start. I mean, it's hard. What's hard for a board is always how much do you base it just on pure performance? If we nick a couple of games 1-0, like by the skin of our teeth, is that? I don't think from a fan point of view, I don't think that's enough to kind of get everyone back on board. I think we need a couple convincing performances. I think from a behind the scenes point of view, it might be.
I mean, he's been backed. I mean, it seems strange to be talking like this. I remember Aaron and I did a kind of a Gary Rowett contract renewal show during the summertime, and how that was seen as good news. So football changes very quickly. I'm struck by AFC Bournemouth sacking Scott Parker, the man who's just got them into the Premier League. Yes, he's taken a pasting at Liverpool, but football at that level, Ryan, is, and maybe has to be, because it's not a sentimental business, it's a ruthless business. And Millwall as a club, and I've said this before, repeat myself, listeners, but we as a fan base and as a club, I don't think we are a ruthless club. No. We tend to rest on sentiment. The number of times you and me will read online about how great it would be if some ex-player came back as a coach or future manager, it always intrigues me. It's in the DNA of the club to not to be ruthless. But I think the situation is fast approaching where if the Gary Rowett project is not working, and the squad as a group don't seem to believe in him, Ryan, then you have to face these questions at some point, possibly fairly soon, if it's just not working out, because money's been invested this time.
Yeah, and that's generally what gets people talking, and kind of raises expectations. I think they're not. Yeah, Millwall aren't ruthless, are they? Obviously, Harris resigned himself. I think we do leave it quite late before making drastic changes, and part of that is, part of it for this is for the board. They've given Gary Rowett a new contract in the summer. The amount that it costs to get rid of him just has exponentially gone up. So I would be surprised, unless things go really, really, really badly, I will be surprised if Gary Rowett isn't still the manager by the time the World Cup comes.
For that break, that 4-week break.
I think things will have to be. We'll have to be, I think, in the relegation zone and looking bad. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where the bar set. Obviously, I don't know where everyone kind of sits behind the scenes and what the expectations are like behind the scenes. But I think obviously the expectation is to get to the playoffs or to get
top six. Yeah,
and that's where I think we spoke about that a bit towards the end of last season. Is when we were looking like we were maybe going to drop to 12th, 13th, which wasn't a disaster. I think we were asking the question is how far off the playoffs is too far off the playoffs, and is it the fact that, we could be 8 points, but it was a couple of performances away, or the fact that it went to the last day of the season, or is it, if there's nothing to play for with 5 games to go, is that too far off the playoffs? So it's a hard remit to set, because obviously I don't think the remit is reach the playoffs. I think the remit is try to reach the playoffs, and that has a lot of grey area around it. So I think drastic change would be unlikely especially at this point. I'll be interested to see if they do a lot more business in the transfer market. I think we haven't got any loan. We've got 2 loan players in, don't we? But Shackleton has obviously got the option to buy. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple more loan players. I think we need to sign a winger. We need to sign.
We need width. We badly lack it.
Width badly, just as an option, because we've got Bury who can play one of them. If it's only a plan B, we need a winger who can come on. I think Joe Bryan was mentioned by a few fans as a left back who might be kind of on his way out from Fulham, and right. I think that's where Mill need to be looking. We need to be looking around the clubs who've just got promoted or who are around that kind of relegation zone, who have players on the fringes, a bit like Shackleton on the fringes. Doesn't really think he's going to get any game time. So let's try and snap them up, because right towards the end of the window, if it becomes clear, I mean, what's it close today? Is it
today? Isn't it? Yeah, we're recording on the 1st. So
well, then I'm not holding up too much hope then, actually. So by the time you hear this, listeners, it might be out of date. But I think it's hard because again, early in the window, you think, oh, business has been quite good. When we got Honeyman, Afobe, and Fleming, everyone's going, oh, this is really good. And now you look at the squad and how they're playing, and you go, Jesus, we need 3 or 4 more. But is
it management, or is it just that the players aren't as good as we thought they were? Is it the quality of the manager and his decision making? Because you get you and I read the same or similar posts online. A lot of people questioning his tactical nous, his rigidity, his one-dimensional approach, which you've mentioned, Ryan, and. Is there I don't know if it's become a cliche in my head, and I keep telling myself there's a better team here than there's playing in front of us. It must come back to tactics and approach and motivation by the man that's managing, for me.
Yeah, I think that's a big part, and that's the thing with football. You can argue, to the end of time about what exactly is it for. You can say, well, it's just an infinite loop you get into. Well, the players aren't good enough, but that's because the manager's not got them playing right, and they're not trying hard enough. But they're not trying hard enough because they don't like the and you end up in a massive loop. And I think generally in football, something has to give, and the whole thing is it's easier to change a manager than it is to change your entire squad. So
yeah,
I think I was having a chat with Simon Moorcroft. I think it was online yesterday about the coaching staff. Actually, it's quite interesting. He raised the fact that, what does Adam Barrett do? Which as a question I've asked myself a couple of times. But, he survived the Neil Harris reign, and I don't know the credentials of each of these individual coaches that Millwall have and how good they are and what impact they have. But one thing I do think I do kind of raise to myself quite often is an issue is they're all centre backs.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Howard, Barrett, Robinson, and now Andy Marshall seems to be, was a goalkeeper, but seems to be kind of in and around that kind of core thinking group. But they're all centre backs. Obviously, Callum Davidson, we go back to him. I don't think he was like the answer. He wasn't like the savant behind pulling the strings.
No.
But he was a midfielder who potentially thought about the game differently. And I'm not saying, Vincent Kompany's a centre back and he's not playing like we played. So it's not as simple as that either. But sometimes do you need an alternative voice in the dressing room that will maybe make
you think?
It's really hard what to say. What do you do to change it up? I think what fans will not want to see really is just what we've seen before, which is just sheer persistence, which is, playing the exact same way with the exact same players, maybe one or two changes every week, and just seeing the same thing. I think we had that slump last season, and when we changed for the second half, I think one game was against Stoke, I can't remember the other, where he changed to a back four.
Yeah.
And we started looking really good. I think was it Luton or Coventry maybe?
Can't remember.
Second half of the game, we looked really good and really exciting.
Achtung, Millwall.
We never really saw that again. So I think it's going to be a matter of changing how we're playing effectively, and maybe taking a few more risks.
When we do take risks, which we normally do when we're two goals behind chasing a game, we actually look like a team that can generate some danger. We do have, and he has. I mean, I don't want it to be a slag fest for Gary Rowett, because he in some ways his style intrigued me, because in watching Zian Fleming, and also Vogel, someone I hadn't come across previously, even his, some will say, when we had Jed Wallace last year, he clearly has an eye for an attacking player, but he then doesn't seem to have the instinct as to how to play them or to give them time. There's a slight kind of conflict of thinking going on within Gary Rowett. It seems maybe it's this defensive centre back mentality. I don't know. As I said already, I just think that there's a better team in this squad than is being allowed to play. But I do agree we need more on the wing.
I think it's there's the old, you mentioned Jose Mourinho earlier. I think that's one thing where his coaching style works and doesn't, depending on the players you've got. I think he's of the school that is very much defensive organisation is the thing you coach, and attacking, it was very much, with the attacking players, basically I'll leave it up to you. We'll coach the method to defend and to start attacks. And once we've got to that point, my players should be good enough to know how to attack. And you don't know if Gary Rowett has one foot in that camp, or if he is, got very detailed and structured attacking systems that the players aren't necessarily pulling off. It's hard to say. And I remember him saying one time last season, which I think is fair enough. I think he said, I think it was after those games where he slightly changed the system. And he said, well, we've been playing a system that has worked for a couple of seasons now, and whatever you think of Gary Rowett in terms of you liking him or not, I think it's hard to say. It's hard to argue that it has worked for the last 2 years. Millwall have been really good for the last 2 years and finished, kept improving and kept finishing higher. Whether or not that's you like the style or necessarily how it's been done, or if you like the man himself, but it's hard to argue that it hasn't worked. So he's not going to just rip it up and start again because it's gone bad for 4 or 5 games. And I think that's fair enough as well. If he's there is the stubbornness that can become a problem, but there is the self-belief and the I know what I'm doing, and he has proved it to an extent. So it will be interesting to see. Again, like I say, I don't expect him to be gone anytime soon. I don't expect him to be changing the system up massively anytime soon. I expect him to be getting into the players, and I expect him to be maybe making tweaks. I do think, again, my main thing is the width. I think that the attack maybe needs a slightly different structure, but at the moment we don't really have the personnel for it. But yeah, I would probably say to listeners, strap yourself in for more of the same.
Is he not going to put bums on seats, Ryan? Love to see.
Well, I think that's just we've had just over 3 years, never remember, but I think that's the way it goes with Gary Rowett. I think he very much believes in what he does, and to this point, minus 5 games, he's largely been proved right especially in his own mind, especially in kind of where the tables lie. So I don't expect drastic radical change very quickly. I expect Millwall to. I don't know. I think the work is going to be done off the pitch in terms of improving the side. Like I say, it might be out of date in terms of transfers. If Millwall do sign anyone before the close of the window, I think it's unlikely. Looking at this, I think the loan window obviously continues a little bit after. So there's the potential there to, after the window's closed, maybe dip in, get a couple where we could strengthen the squad. I think I think there are obviously glaring weak points in the squad, and Ryan Leonard's injury, which I don't think we've spoken about, maybe spoke about on the last show, is a problem.
Yeah,
We're
I've
now
had no
back down
luck
to
injury
one wing back.
wise. That's
Yeah.
been so for some time, isn't it? We've struggled with injuries with these players, Mason Bennett and Ryan Leonard, both injury prone. That's right or wrong. That's the fact of the matter. So I'm going to pick out a few comments from the Twitter, which I'll run past Ryan. Steve Perry talking about how the Gary Rowett's interview says we've conceded too many goals, which yes, we have. How about we simply aren't scoring or creating enough, says Steve. The way we set up invites pressure on the defence. Poor tactically from Rowett again tonight. I mean that's a fair point. We do seem to sit back and we invite good teams like Burnley to have a lot of the football.
I think the creating chances has been a problem since day one, since Rowett walked in. I think the amount of times I've said or written or thought that we just don't create enough, I think is pretty much once a week for the last 3 years. But the interesting point there, I think, is about we're not set up to kind of like stop teams playing through us and get through. I think the midfield has previously been quite good at shutting teams down, whereas now teams are getting through to the back five very, very easily.
And exposing that back five because, pace.
And they're not fast. No one's fast in that back five. I mean, Cresswell, all the jokes about him being massive, I think being massive comes with generally not being that fast. Hutchinson, if he does run too fast, you worry his hamstring will snap. And Cooper is, he is the human embodiment of the Titanic. So he doesn't turn fantastically well. To say they prefer the ball in front of them is probably an understatement. But so it's hard. You need that protection from the midfield, and I feel like we're not really getting that this year. And there's been a lot of times where it's like when you watch Man United play, or when maybe before the last couple of games there is no midfield, and opposition teams are quite quickly running at the back.
They sniff it out, don't they? They sniff it out quite quickly. And
it's so that is a problem. I think the midfield needs a bit more snap in it. Maybe are we missing Kieftenbeld? I mean, I don't know.
Controversial view. I think I saw him injured actually on one of the Dutch. He's injured.
Carrying the great trait of Millwall with him.
Rob Abbott, shout out to Rob. He asks, "Is Gary Rowett a ticking time bomb?" He's come out of really bad spells in the last 2 years, which Ryan's mentioned already. Can he do it again, or has he lost the dressing room? Rob guesses that he won't last beyond Saturday because he has no plan B or even plan C. I think plan C is asking a lot out of him, Rob. The plan B would be a good starting point. A guy called Kane. The black five, the group know the back five isn't working, and Gary Rowett won't change it. He needs a new left back and a winger, which I think is what we've been saying here, Ryan. And comments on his tendency to only make the substitutions when 2-0 down, when we're chasing a game from a long way back. He says that Gary Rowett watches a different game. So it goes on. James Gibbons says the centre backs won't step up to the challenge; they just back off. Gary Rowett has shown his lack of tactical nous, but he's been found out. He says, and also why he stuck with Bennett-Phobia for so long. You'll never know. There we are. You do get a sense of fractiousness around the place, and I do worry about Saturday too, dear listeners.
One thing as well was that I noticed that I wasn't sure if this was always the way with it, but the post-match interview with Gary Rowett after the game was entirely on the Millwall TV Plus.
Pay-per-view,
But I haven't seen it too much this year, but isn't there normally a snippet to kind of entice you in that gets tweeted out, or is there?
Well, they used to put it on Recast where you had to watch a couple of adverts, which I didn't mind. It induced a lot of rage online, but it's similar to what you have on YouTube. You're watching an advert to listen to this. And our thoughts, you have to listen to an advert or two along the way. It's kind of what makes it, what pays for it to happen. But they've put his interviews behind this Mill TV paywall. But you're right. There used to be about a minute or so.
Yeah, you used to be able to get a little clip of it before.
I used to lift it. I used to record it.
So I wasn't sure if that was. I don't know. I hadn't seen. Maybe a listener can correct me. I hadn't seen this season. I thought even this season it had continued that you would get a snippet. I just thought it was an interesting thing that the whole thing was behind on the Millwall TV Plus, and that did anger. I did see that did anger quite a lot of people. I think with the fact that they had no access to the comments, especially after a loss. You know, you feel like you deserve a bit
at least to hear the man himself and what
So
he did. And
considering, you know, initially it was the big 5-minute long interviews with him that when he first came in. Obviously, I know the landscape has changed since then in terms of how Millwall were delivering those, but you used to get the full 5-minute interview and people were praising him for how well he spoke, and you feel like that barrier there
doesn't help matters.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, I think it's an interesting choice that I think people do want to hear, you know, reasoning from the man himself, like you say.
I mean, if the club are listening, I don't know what the thinking is. I mean, I suppose the thinking in the end, Ryan, is that you've got to get as much money out of the business of football as you possibly can. So that's the business ultimately.
And like we're saying, if people actually want to listen to that, you know, people might not necessarily subscribe for the bonus content, but for the post-match interviews, that's a relatively valuable thing. I guess people want to listen to.
But a minute, 59-second snippet that goes onto, I don't know, Instagram or onto Twitter or whatever they do it. Strikes me as a good approach. We shall see. I'm going to say thank you to Ryan, who's actually at work at the moment. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me today, Ryan. Thank you, mate.
No worries. I work from home, so you know.
We're going to play with some voicemails with Harry, who doesn't work at home. He works in a factory. And I'm going to play a few voicemails to play us out today. Let's keep our fingers crossed. And any other body parts you've got available across the Saturday goes well for us. And there's a happy vibe and attacking football and the goals fly in against Cardiff, because I don't really want to think about if it doesn't work out so well. Until the next show, dear listeners, thank you for listening. And from Ryan and myself, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Achtung, Millwall.
So, the morning after, the night before, what the fuck was that last night? I know they're Burnley, I know they're quite good, I know Vincent Kompany's got them playing a good brand of football, but the same story as the rest of the season played out. I thought that in periods of the game, defensively we were good. The goals we gave away were slightly soft. The first one, I think I was offside about it, but you know, it's neither here nor there. Daniel Mack shouldn't let him run to the back of him, and then the second goal is Bart making a very rare mistake after already keeping us in the game 3 or 4 times before that. So, you know, I think they've been extremely harsh to make a big thing of it. But yeah, it was a mistake. Again, the team selection, I didn't disagree with at the start, apart from, again, I'm not trying to be nasty towards Tom Bradshaw. I like Tom Bradshaw. I like the pressing element of his game. And on another night against another side, I would have liked to have seen it. But seeing him against Burnley, whereas Blogslammer and Fleming seem to have a little bit of quality, and really, for me, if we're going to play a front three or continue with this 4-3-3 formation, you've got to have Fury, Blogslammer and Fleming in the team, because Fury's your unpredictability, one who can carry the ball. Blogslammer seems to be a bit of a player, and Fleming as well has got so much talent. It's unbelievable. I mean, it is a shame that we never had him last season, because the rest of the team seems to be going backwards. It was nice to see Scott Malone get dropped. Again, he was brought back into the fold late on. Benekatoni was finally dropped, only to be brought on for Blogslammer, and then gets a chance, which he misses from inside the 6-yard box. His 3 defeats on the spin. I made a joke about 4 defeats. a couple of weeks ago, a week or so ago, after the Fulham, after the defeat against Norwich. I think we are very lucky that it's not 4 defeats as we sit here. I think the fact that we got a point at Swansea should be seen as some kind of modern miracle. One of the 7 wonders of the world, because we could be 4. We played okay against Stoke. I felt at the time we played well against Stoke, but maybe Stoke aren't very good. So we've played Stoke 1-2-0. We've then lost 2-0 away at Sheffield United without really laying a glove on them and getting the job done on us. We've then been absolutely diabolical against Coventry for large periods of the game, only to somehow pull something out of the bag by coming back after their goalkeeper's made a mistake and let us back into it. And again, we're not doing the things that Gary Rowett's built his success, and his success is top half finishes in the Championship, which for Millwall is success. But this side doesn't look like it's capable of even that, and it's a side that's supposedly been built to challenge for the top 6. And this side, I think, a lot of Millwall fans think, from seeing the reaction on Twitter, and feel the same as me, that this season was supposed to be the season that we make a serious challenge, that 10th would no longer be good enough, in the sense that if you finish 10th and we were 2 points out of the playoffs, that's totally different than finishing 9 points, 12 points, 15 points outside the playoffs, finishing 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. And I'll be totally honest, the team, in terms of quality, I have no reason to doubt its quality. There has been quality added to it from last season. We have lost Jed Wallace, who is now unfortunately dearly departed, and missed, because what Wallace would have been in you last night, and what Gary Rowett is seemingly failing to realise, is that when you defend, if you kick the ball out into the channel, Jed Wallace would always go and chase that ball down, maybe get hold of it, or force defenders to play it out, or force defenders to make a bad decision. And we don't do that anymore, because we have no outlet, we have no width, and we have no one that's going to do that run. We're crying out for a winger, or someone that can play out wide, because for whatever reason, we've only got one at the club at the moment, and that doesn't work either. So there's a few issues, but the biggest issue, the elephant in the room, is that Gary Rowett is a defensive manager. His team at the moment cannot defend, cannot keep clean sheets, and that, without those, his team, Millwall fans have accepted his rather dour Mourinho-style football of making sure we don't get beaten trying to nick something, and that's fine as long as it brings results. And we are now getting towards, we're going to be in September tomorrow, and we'll have Steve Morrison's Cardiff with Marlon Romeo on Saturday, and it's got all the ingredients of being a very difficult day at the Den for all concerned, because Steve Morrison will turn up with the intention of winding us up and playing to the crowd, the gallery, like we've seen him do for many, many times before. And when he'll do that, Marlon Romeo will do the same, and there is a possibility that if they score first, which I'm pretty sure, the pattern of this season has been that they will, we will not come back from there. And, if that's what happens, 4 defeats on the spin for Gary Rowett, 5 games without a win, other clubs, bigger clubs, will make decisions and we'll get rid of him. Whether Millwall do or not, I think it basically is dependent on who is available outside of that, and whether or not John Branson believes Gary Rowett has enough credit in the bank to turn it round. But if he was to lose 4, how many do we let it go before we make a decision? That's 4 losses, 5 without a win. How far would you let it go? I'm not too sure what the fixtures are after the Cardiff game, but it'd be an interesting point of discussion on the pod. Anyway, hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully we win on Saturday, but the way we've been playing this season, I really can't see it. Come on, your lines.
Mike Hayden here. Hello, listeners. Following that defeat at Turf Moor last night. Difficult watch. I thought we played quite well in the first half, defensively anyway. It's always positive to get to half time at 0-0. And let's not kid ourselves, although Burnley haven't had the best start to the season, they've just come down from the Premier League, kept quite a few of their players, and have obviously a very good manager in charge in Vincent Kompany, certainly at this level. So 0-0 at half time wasn't a bad scoreline, and I think we were disappointing going forward, though. Every time we got the ball forward, we just couldn't string a couple of passes together. And like a lot of the attacking style for a long time now at Millwall, it's just hopeful sort of passes. I mean, there were a couple where I think it was Vogelsammer tried to play a ball through to Bradshaw, which was just blocked by the last defender. And a couple of those sort of nearly moments. I thought Fleming's free kick was a fantastic effort, and he looked quite bright all evening. But the main thing is I've kind of seen for a long time under Gary Rowett is that it's just the attacking plan is based on luck. It's relying on either a loose ball mistake or some sort of knockdown. There isn't an ability in the side at the moment to really sort of cut a team apart or an actually nice move which kind of ends in a goal. Even when we beat Coventry, it was the same situation. We just, everything kind of fell to us in the box that day. So that is my concern. It was good to see some changes in the team, but sloppy goals in the second half to concede. I mean, McNamara, I think this is why I don't think Rowett's completely sold on him, is lost his man at the back stick and let that in. And then Bart, unfortunately, another mistake today. He did make some good saves throughout the game, but, obviously it was sloppy and just parried it straight back out for the second goal. And that was us done. If you're going to kind of rely on lucky attacking, you've got to be defensively at the back because we're not always going to score the way that we play. So it was disappointing. But I would say that I'd ask fans, though, to be patient. And I know it's difficult because Rowett's been with us for quite a long time, but I can't remember the last time that we had basically a bit of a squad overhaul this summer. Lots of new players, some international signings. It's going to take time to bed them in. So historically, we never start seasons well, and we haven't started particularly well this season. But I think we've got to stick with it. Rowett's searching for that best side that he can play. And I think we will improve. I don't know if I'm being over-optimistic, but I think we will. I think once players kind of settle in a bit more, I like on the whole what I'm seeing from Fleming and Vogelsammer. And I quite liked that lineup yesterday that we played. So it'd be good to see something like that at home and see kind of how we kind of get on. But important to beat Cardiff on Saturday and hopefully get a bit of a good feeling back, because already feeling a bit flat at the moment. But I think kind of keep the faith. Keep the faith for now. It's always difficult when you've got a lot of new players, and hopefully we'll see some improved performances in the coming weeks. Come on, you Lions.
Hi Nick, just thought I'd phone in with my thoughts on the match against Burnley. John Rankin here. I thought defensively we looked in a lot better shape in the early stages. Sean Hutchinson played well. Burnley obviously a very, very good outfit. They had 70% possession during the game. It was our midfield, I think, that lacked any kind of composure on the ball. We didn't seem to win any second tackles, and it was kind of inevitable that they were going to score in the second half. Very, very tough game to try and get something out of, but I feel that Rowett again is making poor decisions in terms of how he organises these players. When you've got a team that plays possession football and can knock it around like Burnley can, having come down from the Premier, you need players in that midfield who can cover the pitch and Billy Mitchell and George Honeyman, who've got the best motors in our squad, were left on the bench. Crazy decision making, if you ask me. He seems to go from one extreme to the other, Gary Rowett. He changes things and then kind of panics and seems to make change for change's sake. Shackleton is a good squad member, but he should not be starting ahead of Honeyman and Billy Mitchell. And the bright sparks in the game, obviously, for us was Ian Fleming. Vogelslammer looked useful, but didn't have as much impact as I thought he might. But having said that, very little possession for those creative players to play with, and that was because of the midfield. It was just totally absent. I don't think George Saville had the greatest of games, and if you ask me, looking at the players, they seem very dispirited. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of communication on the pitch. They're looking at each other and blaming each other, and the 2 goals were pretty soft. Cresswell was woefully ball watching on the first goal, and the second goal, well, you know, it's obvious that a shot's coming, that Bart's going to parry that out, so just stand still and watch the ball. Why don't you, Cooper and Hutchinson? You know, it's to me, it smacks of a team that's kind of lost its way, really, and that's down to leadership on the bench and leadership off the bench. I think if we carry on playing as we are, we will do well to avoid relegation, and I think the clock must be ticking now for Gary Rowett. His project must be coming to an end. He's been indulged. He's got Cardiff on Saturday. I think that is a do or die, and when we get to the 10-game mark, we should be looking for a replacement. One thing that is crystal clear to me, and it's based on evidence, because obviously we're all, you know, so emotionally committed to Millwall that often we can just say things in the heat of the moment. But if you cast your mind back to last season, when we had our very good run of 8 undefeated games with quite a few wins in there, including some away victories as well, we had a squad of 13 to choose from. So the personnel decisions were kind of made for Gary Rowett. Now when he's got 23 or 24 or whatever it is, 20 players available, he just cannot pick the right combinations. And I think that is clear evidence that he's making the wrong decisions. And managing a football club, just like managing a business, you have to get the big calls right. You get them wrong and you lose. Or if you get them wrong in business, you sacrifice your profits and you struggle. There's no difference. So to me, that's the evidence that Gary Rowett cannot pick the right team from these combination of players, and I feel sorry for the players. They just are not being picked in the right position and at the right times. And the substitutions, the strategy is just nonsensical. Why do you bring players on with 5 minutes to go? It's just pointless. Very, very unimpressed. I think old GR has lost the plot, I really do. And he needs to go back and do some more of his FIFA courses and get his head sorted out. But use someone else's club to bolster his CV. Thanks very much. Come on, you Lions.
Achtung, Millwall.
No One Likes Us Clothing is the clothing range designed by Millwall fans for Millwall fans. Caps, t-shirts, polos, they've got it all. Visit noonelikesus.co.uk for the full range. Or if you're in Bermondsey on a match day, why not have a pint in the Blue Anchor pub and pick up a Nolu polo shirt, Nolu clothing at www.noonelikesus.co.uk.